Let's talk more human evolution. This time we're going to go back 6 or 7 million years to when we last shared a common ancestor with the population that would also branch off to become the chimps and bonobos. So everything in this line, these are the hominins, the animals more closely related to humans than our cousin group, our sister group, the genus, the chimps and bonobos. So let's talk about it. Over here is the modern day. As you move backwards, you're going back further in time. Over here, we know a lot more about this stuff. We have DNA. Back here, it's harder to tell, which is why I have it kind of more broad, and we're really gonna kind of start right here. So this would be what we call our last common ancestor, the Australopithecus group. We evolved from the Australopithecus group. Australopithecus, they continued living alongside us for quite a while though. The last with the Australopithecus sediba going extinct around 1.2 or 1 million years ago. And our Homo genus, which goes down here, we aren't the only genus to have evolved from Australopithecus. If you look up here, there's another divergence. That is the Paranthropus genus. So we've got Boise and Robustus up there, two different species of Paranthropus that again lived alongside us in Africa until around 1.2 or 1 million years ago. Now we get into our actual group, the humans. Anything in the Homo genus, so anything past this point is technically a human. Even Homo naledi, which is a very strange species of human, the evidence suggests they may be one of the earlier diverging amongst our entire group. As we move down this group, we have habilis, and then we start to get into what we call erectus. And really, a lot of this is erectus, or species that have evolved from erectus, because erectus traveled all over the place. Some of them were moving out of Africa over 2 million years ago. Some of those groups that left Africa, they continued living out in East Asia until more recently. Some of the groups that moved out towards East Asia, they branched off down into Sulawesi, and some ended up on islands where they evolved into hobbit species like Floresiensis or Luzonensis. And then over here, you have our group and another deeply diverging group that diverged from our group around 1.5 million years ago, Heidelbergensis. For a long time, Heidelbergensis was kind of considered either a wastebasket taxon, meaning a bunch of stuff just kind of got lumped into it, or a chronospecies, or both. The chronospecies meaning they were kind of the bridge between erectus and our more modern human species. But more recent evidence is starting to suggest that some of these Heidelbergensis skulls aren't our ancestors, but are a group that was living at the same time as us, perhaps even a group that we interbred with. And I'll get into hybridization at the very end of this, but this is our group. This is the group that you could even make the argument that we are all kind of a same species, like a species complex. We weren't quite fully diverged. There was lots of hybridization going on between us. So that's the Neanderthals, which were out in Europe and West Asia, the Denisovans, which made it out into East Asia, and then us, the sapiens, which were evolving in Africa. Some of our group actually left Africa over 100, maybe even over 150,000 years ago. But those groups seem to have either been extinct or been absorbed by the Neanderthals. So I guess let's get into the hybridization. I personally think hybridization has been a big part of the human family tree. In fact, I think Naledi may have hybridized with some of these Australopithecus or Paranthropus groups that persisted later, and there may be kind of some strange human Australopithecus-like traits there because of that hybridization. But the hybridization that we do know of, we know that around 300,000 years ago, our species, our ancestors, they interbred with a group that had diverged from us around 1.5 million years ago. Now today, everyone carries around 20% of their DNA from this mysterious species. Maybe Heidelbergensis, maybe not. Then we have some more hybridization happening with us. Around 200,000 years ago, we hybridized with the Neanderthals. We do it again around 120,000 years ago, probably when this group left. This group actually left some DNA with the Neanderthals that caused some confusion. Let me kind of get into this part. Earlier studies on populations in Africa suggested that all humans in Africa had some Neanderthal DNA, More recent studies have actually realized that what they were thinking was Neanderthal DNA was actually DNA from these earlier sapiens that interbred with Neanderthals. So they were finding it in Neanderthals and assuming that must be Neanderthal DNA. Really, it's sapiens DNA. And now we do still see evidence that there are some pockets of sapiens in Africa with zero Neanderthal DNA. Back to the hybridization though, around 50,000 years ago, once sapiens really start spreading, we interbreed with the Neanderthals again, and we essentially absorb them. The Neanderthals go extinct shortly after we start meeting up with them, and the same thing actually happens with the Denisovans. Multiple lineages of Denisovans hybridize with sapiens, and shortly after, the Denisovans are gone. Now I know what people are going to ask next. Why are we the last human species? Why did the others go extinct? The reality is we don't know for sure. The evidence seems to suggest that after the divergence between us and our cousins, our population was evolving across Africa and really pretty interconnected over time. When we look at the DNA of Neanderthals, we kind of see the opposite. It seems like as they were dealing with the more extremes of the ice ages, they were living more in isolation. And I think those population dynamics are likely what led to us absorbing these other populations so rapidly after expanding out of Africa. And then one of the other things I want to talk about is some of the nuance here. One, this doesn't necessarily imply that we didn't evolve from erectus. These populations are what we call erectus. So down here, during this time frame, we could also consider that erectus, meaning that this tree still potentially shows Heidelbergensis and our group evolving from erectus. I just like to leave this more vague because until we have more DNA or just even proteins that allow us to test what actually came from what, I think it's more helpful just to kind of make it so people understand we don't know for sure, and we're not trying to say this as if we know for sure. Over here, I also added some more colors. I added some purple and blue to show that the Australopithecus group actually started over 4 million years ago. Some diverged and continued evolving alongside the lineage we descend from, but others continued living for a while, and we think we descend from those populations. Our current understanding is that our genus came from the Australopithecus genus, meaning in a weird way, you could argue that Australopithecus never actually went extinct. They just continued evolving. And then Paranthropus, I made them blue right there. So you can see that that group, that genus, also evolved from earlier Australopithecus groups, just like the Homo group. So ask questions. This is what I love talking about. Follow if you want to learn more about human evolution, because we are learning more about this history every week. It seems like there are interesting papers published.